The LUMIX S1 II is one of the best hybrid cameras out there, and so is the C50. How both of these compare, which one is better in terms of dynamic range, colors and so many more, you're gonna find out in this video. Coming up. I've been using the Canon C50 for the last 2 months and I'm using the S1 Mark II since it came out. So I've used both of them on jobs. Obviously I used the S1 II a little bit longer, just that you understand my kind of a backstory. And honestly, the S1 Mark II is a really great hybrid camera because it has so many great features and can basically do everything that you wanted to have. But the C50 goes, in my opinion, even a step further. So we have more dedicated features inside this camera. Both of them are sharing open gate, high resolution, everything like that, raw recording and so many more. But I feel like straight from the body design, I prefer the Canon C50. Because here we have like the option due to the threads inside the body that for video work we can properly secure a cage or can even mount the camera as it is on something like, I don't know. I'm just fed up with this scenario that these cameras just have one mounting point on the bottom and then you have to screw on the cage on these side things here, which is always kind of annoying. And I feel like just if you go more to a video route, then the camera needs to have more threads, in my opinion. So, and also from the grip wise, Canon is just great when it comes to that. So the grip of the camera is really great. And also the customizable buttons that you have on the camera just makes a lot of sense and you can do everything just from one click. So all in all, I prefer the Canon C50 when it comes to the body design. Now let's come to the most important thing, which is basically the image quality of both of these cameras. And if we compare them here side by side in different scenarios, indoor, outdoor, and so many more, I really have to say that the Canon C50 always looks very neutral when it comes to the colors. So there's no major shift towards green, blue, yellow, magenta, anything like that. So the camera stays really neutral, which is always a good starting point if you want to do more color correction, color grading, and so on and so forth. On the LUMIX S1 II, I found, and that I've also said on many other reviews that you have here on the channel, we have kind of this magenta tint, which is not only affecting the skin, that the skin looks more pink, but also in the whole mid-tone. So if you have a look at my jacket that I'm wearing and everything, and also on the street and everything, there's just like this magenta tint in the image, which I personally don't like. So color wise, I prefer the Canon C50 here. And also talking about detail and sharpness and everything like that. So even though the Canon C50 has more megapixels or more higher resolution, everything like that, I feel like that the Canon C50 looks a little bit more neutral. So the LUMIX looks kind of a little bit digital over sharp. So there's no way basically to turn that down inside the camera, even if you're already filming in vlog and stuff like that. So this is kind of unfortunate, but it is the way that I'm feeling that. In terms of low light capabilities, I think both cameras are really great. The C50 has a higher base ISO, so the S1 has 5000 and the C50 has 6400. But all in all, I think both cameras are good to use in low light, and from the past cameras that came out, all of them are just basically good in low light. So there's no real issue here. Also, I don't see any issue in terms of rolling shutter and anything like that. I think it's a topic that's overdone too much in my opinion. I think from both the rolling shutter is basically very good and you won't notice it in any of your shots basically. When it comes to dynamic range, there we can obviously see a difference. So I did my over and under exposure test, and basically in all the shots that we see outside, there's no real difference in these images. So you can't make up on these shots that one of the camera has more dynamic range than the other. All of them are exposed the same way. And yeah, so you don't see any difference there in real world scenarios, I would say. But if you do like these tests here, like the over and under exposure test, it's really a stress test to find out how the camera behaves in kind of extreme situations. If we look closely into overexposure, both cameras perform actually really well. So you can use both cameras easily up to 3.5 stops, 4 stops, even 4.5 stops, and even the S1 II is still a little bit better in terms of highlight retention here. So this is really impressive what LUMIX has done here. And also, if you're asking for why I'm not using the dynamic range boost, this is just a shift of the dynamic range towards the highlights. So if you do that, you lose a whole stop in underexposure, so in the shadows. So that's why I usually don't do that, and I think the dynamic range that the camera has is already plenty more than enough. So when it comes to underexposure, here we actually see a pretty big difference. So if we go into 1 stops, 2 stops, both cameras look really fine. Past 2 stops, you directly can see in the Canon that obviously the noise is increasing, but we are losing a lot of color information. There's basically saturation gun color information is not really there anymore. The LUMIX stays a little bit more consistent when it comes to that in the color information, but also the noise gets even harder to a point. So I see like the S1, you can go really up to 3.5 stops under, even 4 stops if you do noise reduction. So on the Canon it's really hard if you go 3 stops under. So the noise is obviously still manageable, I would say, but the kind of the color information that is not really there anymore makes it hard to bring the camera back, in my opinion. So I would rate the Canon C50 to around 6.5, 7-ish stops in exposure latitude, whereas the S1 II is around 8. So yeah, I'm really impressed what the LUMIX is doing here on the kind of exposure, and it's one of the best cameras when it comes to dynamic range if we look into those mirrorless hybrid cameras in these days. All in all, both cameras are performing really well, and as Gerald Undone stated, cameras are really fixed these days, and I basically feel the same when I'm testing new cameras, and they are just minor differences, and what it comes down to is your personal preference, what you do prefer color-wise, what you do prefer body-wise and everything like that. But just straight from the image quality and what these cameras can do, that is really comparable. And also, yes, we have a stop more of dynamic range in the LUMIX, but in the real world scenario you don't see that. And all the jobs that I did with the Canon C50, I didn't feel limited in any way by the dynamic range. So that being said, I think the cameras are great, but from the body wise and from how the camera is designed, I personally prefer the Canon C50, just from the body and the mounting points and everything like that. Just would make sense more for me as a filmmaking only guy. But obviously you can also do photos, so then LUMIX is better because you also have the viewfinder and stuff like that. So there are trade-offs that you have to make. But from a video-centric person first, I probably would choose the Canon C50 first. So let me know in the comments below what are you thinking about this camera. So happy to chat with you over there. And don't forget to check my other videos, because there's also a comparison between the C50 and the Nikon ZR, and also the standalone review of the C50. And see you there. Cheers.